Stuck, let's jump into it with the NFC East. And we'll start at the top with the Dallas Cowboys. Their win total's 10.5, a little juiced up toward the under. What do you think of Dallas? I know you like to quote the fact that no team has repeated as an NFC East winner since, I think it's what, 2003, 2004?
Yeah, it's been almost 20 years.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's been a wild division. I'm part of a couple of Dallas is an intriguing team in that when I first look at them, if you look at some of the advanced metrics last year, I mean, I think from a DVOA perspective, they finished 1 overall in the regular season. And a lot of their advanced metrics looked pretty good. And you could argue that Dak Prescott wasn't fully healthy. It came out that Zeke Elliott is on the decline, I think, but he also wasn't fully healthy. But the things that I don't like about Dallas, I hated their offseason. And, just what they lost, what they gave up or didn't get back for Amari Cooper. You lose Randy Gregory in absurd fashion. The receiver situation, I think it takes a major step back. I think the offensive line is going to be worse off. I just didn't like what they did in the offseason. I think they're worse off than they were last year. The wild card is the health of all right, how hurt was Dak, how hurt was Zeke, and when does Gallup come back? And then on the other side, the defense benefited from, it led the league in EPA for turnovers, and that there's probably some major regression coming in that department. We talked about how much we liked the defense and your boy at coordinator, how he adjusted and he wasn't just, Quinn wasn't just running his cover 3 and he was using a lot more man and different looks. But they definitely benefited a lot from turnovers. And if you look at some of the luck metrics, there's potential regression coming from Dallas. I think the Eagles got better. The Giants will be better. Washington, meh. And I think Dallas got worse overall. I project them at 9.8 wins. I think their win total is over 10 juiced. So I would lean under. I'd rather attack this division elsewhere. But they're definitely an intriguing team where you can make arguments for both sides of where this team is headed in 2022. But I don't think that they got better from last year.
Yeah, I think, Diggs is obviously not going to intercept as many passes. That, interceptions have a massive impact on, your point differential and whatnot. So I could see them taking a step back, but the schedule is really not that tough. I think I got them favored in 10 games. So it's a no bet for me either way, but I wouldn't be surprised if they repeat, finally and break the curse. But I just think the market's kind of correct on there, 10.5. That's kind of where it should be, just given the schedule. But
another thing to keep in mind though is if you look at their DVOA, which this doesn't take this into account. We mentioned the interception luck that Diggs enjoyed. Now, not all of it's luck. He's very aggressive. He also was burnt a lot. That's kind of his nature. But they also had fumble luck, and they benefited from a very easy schedule last year. Which they're going to have another easy schedule this year, and that's obviously accounted for. But last year they faced a number of backup quarterbacks, and if you recall, at the end of the year, they faced a decimated Washington team, Philadelphia. They a lot of their point differential came from a couple games, and there was some backup quarterbacks that they got to face. So I think that I'm curious to get your thoughts on Collins is no longer a tackle. I didn't really love their draft. Curious to get your thoughts on the wide receiver room though. So you lose Cooper, you lose Ced Wilson, you bring in James Washington. You don't know when Gallup is going to come back. How reliant are they going to be on Jalen Tolbert, a rookie from South Alabama? What are your thoughts on the wide receiver room and how it impacts Dak in this offense?
So I definitely think it's obviously going to take a step back. We're probably going to see CeeDee Lamb have a monster breakout season. I think he's going to get a huge target share, but Tolbert is a guy, I like him, just watching him on film. I think he's a guy who can kind of go inside and outside, decent route runner. So he should be able to help them while Gallup is out. Now I kind of wonder with this guy Cavante Turpin, going off in the return game. Might they give him more snaps? We've seen them go like 4 or 5 deep at wide receiver. I mean, they were getting Wilson involved last year, Noah Brown. So this team, they're gonna mix and match. It's obviously not ideal that losing Gallup and then losing Washington. Although I don't think Washington's really a difference maker at this point in his career. I'd rather go with like Tolbert and see if some of the other young guys have some juice. But I think you're going to see a lot of Dalton Schultz. I think you're going to see a lot of Tony Pollard in the slot. But the Cowboys just seem to keep coming up with these playmakers like this Turpin guy. When's the last time you saw a guy take 2 kicks back in the same game, preseason or otherwise? So that's just another weapon for them.
Jermaine Lewis in the Super Bowl against the Giants. I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my concern would be, and by the way, was it Turpin really going off, or is it just another chapter in this Chargers special teams allure?
Probably a little of both.
Yeah. No, he definitely looked electric. And my concern, though, with Lamb, who obviously is a monster and is going to have a big year, is though if you don't have someone else step up, and there's, depending on when Gallup comes back, Hooper's no longer there. Can defense? He's the number one guy now, and defenses can really focus on him if no one else is stepping up outside. That would be my concern for the Dallas offense, because before it's like, all right, you have to cover Gallup, you have to cover Cooper, and you have to cover Lamb. It's not like you can double team everybody, and you usually have a good offensive line, which took a step back. So I think that there's potential regression on both sides of the ball here. So I would lean under, but yeah, as you said, pretty easy schedule. But I think the division got better overall outside of Dallas, and they got worse.
Yeah, it's definitely true. Let's talk about the Eagles, because the Eagles are a team that I really like. I think, now with the win total being bet up, it's 9.5, but it's -150. Probably not much value there, although I do have them favored in 11 games. So I like Jalen Hurts. I think A.J. Brown is just going to add a massive, top target to this offense. A.J. Brown was targeted on almost 30% of his routes last season. And, targets per route essentially says, hey, this guy gets open. And to add that to an offense that already had, Devontae Smith entering year 2, had one of the better receiving tight ends in the league in Goddard, have, Gainwell in the backfield, Sanders, they got guys that can catch the ball. But
arguably the best offensive line in the NFL.
Yeah. It's a top, arguably the best, like you said, top 3 definitely. So I really think Jalen Hurts is going to take a step forward. He's a guy that tends to get doubted, but I look at Hurts and it's like, there's like a 2019 Lamar in his range of outcomes, especially with A.J. Brown, who's just a monster of a receiver, and he's going to be protected. He's going to be able to take off when he needs to. They found their running game down the stretch last year, so they have that as well. But remember, this team, the first, 7-8 games, they were one of the pass heaviest teams in the league. So I think they have multiple ways to beat you. I think they're going to kind of be more balanced now that they got Brown. I think the schedule is easy. I love the O-line. So yeah, I have this team favored in 11 of the 17 games. So I really like this Eagles team this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were the ones to win that NFC East. I actually like them at +170 to win it.
Yeah, I really like what the Eagles did in the offseason. If you look at, some of the numbers with Hurts can be a bit misleading. The offense did take off, just they were excellent at running the ball, and Hurts is a big part of that. The schedule did ease up at the end of last year. Some of the advanced metrics suggest that Hurts didn't really improve from an accuracy standpoint. So that's what I want to see if he can take a leap. A.J. Brown will certainly help that. And throwing over the middle of the field, which has been a weakness for Hurts, A.J. Brown will certainly help that. He's also going to take a lot of attention from a defense that'll, you have guys that can open it up over top, and you have this obviously dynamic rushing attack. So, if the offensive line stays healthy too, this is a really dynamic offense, especially if Hurts can take that next step from an accuracy standpoint. What I was really impressed with in the second half of last year was their defense, which was just a dumpster fire at times early in the year. But Gannon, I think, started to figure it out and towards the end of last season. And I like some of the additions in the offseason, in the secondary, in the draft. I think Kaiser White's an underrated get, a good fit for Gannon. Then also they added Reddick, and generating pressure was a issue for the Eagles last year, and he should help in that department. So I think their defense also can take a step forward. Grabbing Bradbury, who I think is a good fit for it's going to most likely be another zone-heavy defense. So yeah, it all comes down to Hurts. If Hurts takes a really big step forward, he doesn't have to do too much for this team to get to the playoffs. But if he takes a massive step forward from an accuracy standpoint, this team is a legit Super Bowl contender. I really like what they did in the offseason. I project them at like 9-8, 9-9. So props if you bet the Eagles over before the Brown yet, because I think they were at 8.5 maybe. And they've obviously taken some money. I'm trying to think when we recorded back pre-draft, I think they were at 8.5. So if you grab that over, I obviously really like that. I've upgraded this team a bit, and I'm at 9-8, 9-9. Over 9.5 minus 150. You're talking close to basically around 10. So I don't see any value in it, but I don't mind them to win the division. And if you're a buyer of Hurts, it might be worth a flyer for the Super Bowl, in a wide open NFC.
Yeah, I have them just over 10, so I have them real close with the Cowboys. That's why I love that future to win the NFC East, because I don't want to take a win total juiced up to minus 150. But to your point on Hurts and the accuracy, he actually did take a step forward from his rookie year. It was
for sure.
Yeah, 60.7% of his throws were on target, which is terrible, according to Pro Football Reference. 78.2% last year, so that's 18% jump. His bad throws went from 27% to 14% as well. So listen, I think anytime you're throwing like Quez Watkins and Jalen Reagor, and those are your number 2 and 3, it's going to be tough. Like now you're going to add AJ Brown to take a ton of those targets. I really like it. And like you said, this defense is slept on. I think it's got solid players like all around the defense. Like you look at their Pro Football Focus grades, and they don't really have anyone in the red. They have a couple of guys, kind of in the average range, but I mean, you got solid quality players up and down this defense on all 3 levels. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles are like the Titans from last year. You know how it's going to always be a team that's like good but not great, but just has good luck and end up, winning 12, 13 games. Like I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles are that team this year.
Yep.
All right, let's go Giants. Giants win total at 7. It's even minus 110 on both sides. The O-line should be better, which is, that's something they've sorely needed for a while now. They obviously got the new coach in Dable. I do like him as an upgrade on Judge and Garrett and everything that was going on with them. But still only have the Giants favored in 4 games. They do have a lot of games where, I think it could kind of go either way. So, take that with a grain of salt. But, I don't expect them to get to 8 wins, and that's where you have to get to bet the over. But what do you think?
Yeah, I played some over 6. I think it was at 6 when we were doing this, when we were doing the podcast. I recently played over 6.5 minus 135, which I still like. Obviously, the Eagles getting better doesn't help, but I don't think Washington got better. And like I said, I think Dallas got worse. There's also a couple spots in the schedule that I like, but I think that this team should benefit more than anybody from the offseason, just having competent play callers, like throwing more on first down, using more motion, also just better injury luck. This is one of the unluckiest teams in the NFL last year in terms of injuries, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I agree the offensive line should be better. Horrible injury luck in that front as well. Yeah. They've had some injuries again this preseason, the offensive line, so we'll see how it turns out. They can't buy a break in that department. And Thibodeau, I thought it was going to be bad. He's going to be out for the year. We'll see what he can do, but it looks like he could be back for the opener. I am concerned about, I think Martindale as a defensive coordinator the defense did some good things last year, and they got no help from the offense. So if the offense can get a little better, should help the defense. I think he'll be able to generate some pressure with some exotic blitz looks. That's what he loves to do. But if you're going to do that, what did the Ravens do a lot? And you saw it when they didn't have corners. When all the corners are hurt, you get burnt all day. Your corners are going to be out on islands if you want to play the defense. And Martindale just blitzes no matter what. It doesn't matter. So you're going to have corners on islands. And as of right now, Allen Robinson is slated to be a starting cornerback. But and he hasn't looked good. And I would love for them to go out and get, Gettleman left a mess, and it's going to take a while for them to clean up the mess. I think they're in better shape than they were last year. And they're kind of just trying to manage, all right, let's be competitive, but also clean up this cap mess and all that. But I would love for them to go get a veteran corner. You have some rookies, like a guy like Flott, but I think he's better served in the slot. So that second corner spot could end up burning the Giants all year long. Curious to see what they do there. But I just think from a coaching and management perspective, they will be much more competent, even like fourth down aggressiveness, something that simple, which they were horrific at. Also, just not quarterback sneaking on 3rd and 8, like just little things that, and by the way, I think the most important, we'll see if Daniel Jones can take a step. Because on one side, it's like, all right, we have this sample size and we kind of know who he is. We've seen some flashes, but, I think the Football Outsiders in their preview, they went back and looked at all the quarterbacks who kind of fit the profile of where Jones is ranked over his first 3 years, and it's not pretty. But he's been in maybe the worst situation you could possibly imagine. The injuries, the offensive line, incompetent coaching. So we'll see if he could take a step forward. But I think the most important signing that not enough people are talking about for the Giants is Tyrod Taylor. And there was even like rumors like, is he running with the ones? So that's important for 2 reasons. If you look at the Giants last year, it's like the Giants obviously had a horrific year. They finished 4-13, but their record with Jones was 4-7. They were 0-6 with Jake Fromm and the neck Glennon starting a quarterback. And they were horrendous. Now you get one of the best backups in the NFL who's also familiar with this system and scheme. I think you're going to see more RPOs, which will fit Jones too. I think they'll be more efficient in that aspect. But if Jones isn't it, you can go to Taylor. If Jones gets hurt, right, there's offensive line questions. You have Tyrod Taylor instead of Glennon and Fromm. So that could be worth 1 or 2 wins, right? If Jones is out, if you just say, hey, we're going to Tyrod Taylor. So I think from the backup court, the Giants couldn't do a lot from a cap perspective. And you hope Kenny Golladay remembers who he was. But having Tyrod Taylor instead of Fromm and Glennon, I think it isn't being talked about enough. I project the Giants at, let's see, my latest projections, I'm at like 7, 9, 8. So I'm higher on them than the market. I think you can still get a 7 out there. I would play that, but I prefer over 6.5 juiced. I just think that all the coaching and management, and I like what they did I love what they did in the draft. Actually, offensive line should be better. Hopefully, they get better injury luck and better results on the field for the team. The only team in the NFL that has gone under their win total in each of the past 5 seasons.
Yeah, maybe that's why I'm not as optimistic as you. I mean, I definitely think they take a step forward, but I am worried about the receiving core, first of all, because Kenny Golladay just looks like, that classic, what happens to a big-bodied receiver that kind of peaks a little bit later. Like, this guy just can't get separation anymore, even if he's on the field healthy. And I think that's a problem because the rest of these receivers are, you'd rather play them in the slot. I mean, you have Tony, you have Wan'Dale Robinson.
Glass too.
Yeah, and really, Robinson's a guy that he kind of reminds me of Rondale Moore. Like, I don't know if he'll be like a true help at wide receiver as much as he is more like a McKenzie or a Rondale Moore. And then, we don't know exactly what's going on with Shepard. I know Colin Johnson and Bachman are having good camps, but I still think they're a little short in terms of pass catchers. They got Bellinger, the rookie, has been taking all the first team reps at tight end. So that's, it's just going to be a struggle. I think Saquon Barkley should get a huge workload as long as he's healthy, but you don't want to run him into the ground. But, the offensive line, I think that's just, it can't be understated how bad Jones's offensive line has been. So to have, Thomas and then Neal should be, good as a top 10 pick as well. That's going to add a lot, but I don't see this team winning 8 games. I do think their schedule is easy, but Yeah, if I was betting it over, I definitely want that 6.5 because I am worried about that secondary. You know, Adoree Jackson, he was good last year. Can he keep it going? Because if he regresses at all, I mean, this secondary is there's major problems. You know, outside of McKinney at safety, you know, I still don't think the pass rush is going to be great. Even with Thibodeau, you know, the linebacking core you can take advantage of. We'll see how Blake Martinez looks, but it's a very underwhelming defense, I think. So you're gonna need some guys at the skill positions to step up. Maybe it's Wandale. Maybe he steps up. Maybe Tony does his thing. I got him like wide receiver 45 in fantasy, but yeah, I am a little worried about those skill positions just because I think it could be a struggle for Daniel Jones. He's one of those guys that if they could have got him like an AJ Brown, that would have been amazing. But of course, Gettleman gets Galladay, and now Giants are stuck with it.
Yep.
All right, let's go to the Washington Commanders. Their win total is 8. It's even money to the over, minus 120 to the under. I like the under on this one. Like, yeah, I just don't believe in Carson Wentz. I don't. I think Jack Del Rio and his defense, it just hasn't been good. You know, ever since we thought it was going to take a step forward last year. Reports out of camp where it's been just as bad. You know, I just don't like this team. I don't like Carson Wentz. I like the rookie Robinson at running back, nice fantasy sleeper. You know, I know they got unlucky with injuries, although it seems like every year they get unlucky with injuries, but they were 26th in adjusted games lost last year. But I just see this as a very mediocre team with a quarterback who could implode. And I think what's going to happen is they're probably going to start him most of the year because they paid him. And, you know, we saw how that turned out for the Colts down the stretch, but I just don't believe in Carson Wentz. So I'm leaning under on this Washington Commanders team. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm just getting bad vibes around this team too, just as far as like what's going on at camp. And, you know, you're going to get Chase Young back, which should help the defense, but I'm not in love with the linebacker or secondary situation. And what did they do? Like, I didn't love their draft either. I thought they reached for Dotson, and at least McLaurin isn't like holding out for the season. But yeah, I mean, what did they do? How do they get better? They added Wentz. I mean, I guess you could argue it's like I would say it's like a lateral move for the quarterback situation. With much more, I mean, they always, the last couple of years, it's kind of been boom or bust at quarterback with some always high implosion probability. But what else did they do? They went out and got Trey Turner, Andrew Norwell, like that's it. And I didn't like their draft. So there's not much to really like about this team. It's an underwhelming team. I project them like, because I have them with one of the 3 or 4 easiest schedules in the NFL, and that's what happens when you're in the NFC. But yeah, I mean, I'm under 8. I project under 8. If I had to bet it, I don't have enough value to bet it, but I would certainly look under. I think the Cowboys got a little worse, but I think the Giants will be better. The Eagles got better, and I just don't think this Washington roster got any better. I know that there's, you know, maybe some third down regression and some, you know, better injury luck, but you know, unless Dotson just has a monster year and Wentz is something that I don't think he is, I don't see this team getting to 9 or 10 wins. I look at it more as like 8 is their ceiling if things go right. But yeah, I don't like what's going on in Washington.
Yeah, it's a very mediocre team, and I think if they had a different quarterback besides Wentz, maybe I liked them more. But you know, everyone's talking about Wentz like he's going to be this massive difference maker for Washington. Carson Wentz hasn't averaged 7 yards an attempt in 4 years. He's been 6'7", 6'0", 6'9" the last 3 years. His career 6.8 yards per attempt is the same exact figure as Taylor Heineke. You know, and I think it's going to come down to that. And, you know, if you're sitting there waiting a year and you need Carson Wentz to get you, you know, 1 or 2 more wins, you know, at Cleveland or against Dallas in those last 2 games, you know, I wouldn't trust them to do it. So, yeah, it's not like a terrible team by any means. You worry about, can Samuel stay healthy? Like you said, did they reach on Dotson? I think the O-line will be fine. So that's a positive. They have some pieces on defense, but I don't know. Del Rio's kind of lost his mind a little bit. Like they just haven't put it together. So, it's an underwhelming team, but I'm going under because I don't believe in Wentz.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at one of their corner spots with William Jackson, who they gave a 3-year, $50 million contract to before last year. Guess where he's at? He's about to turn 30. And you saw it last year. He was not good. And the history of cornerbacks around this age that kind of start showing cracks is not too promising if you're a Washington fan.
Yeah, I like Curl, their safety.
Yeah, Curl's a good player.
Fuller's obviously a good player. Like they have pieces littered around here. Like theoretically, they should be a lot better on defense. So if they could do that, I think that's kind of how they get over the total. They have to kind of play kind of like the Colts last year. And don't need to throw too much. Just rely on your defense, run the ball. They have a good backfield, but I just don't see it.